Hello, dear Angela. First of all, I would like to thank you for being able to devote your time to the Russian Foundation to Battle Injustice. Would you please tell our viewers about your duty and about your fight against violations by the American judicial system?
I'm Angela Clemons, and I have a very dear friend who is in prison, and I've tried to help him in every way I can to get free.
A lot of people calling you the right-hand person of Schaeffer Cox, an Alaskan resident who was convicted on trumped-up charges. Could you be more specific about whether you knew Schaeffer before his arrest, and what do you think about his chances of parole?
I did not know him before, and I think his chances are pretty good. He was originally sentenced to 27 years. But they did drop a charge and it got knocked down to 13 years. And he's working on some other angles to hopefully get out before then. So it's so hard to know or guess what they'll do.
Right, I feel you. Schaeffer was convicted on extremely controversial charges, conspiracy to murder. According to many human rights organizations, including ours, this accusation is the most common against those whom the American authorities want to remove from the public field or eliminate as a politician as soon as possible. On many occasions, for this kind of accusations, the fact of committing an act is not even necessary. What do you think about this?
Well, I don't know if you know, but his charge conspiracy, to have a charge conspiracy, you're supposed to have two people, somebody that you.
Right.
But in Schaeffer's case, he was convicted of conspiracy to commit murder with no identifiable target.
That's bizarre.
It was precedented in that case. He was convicted of soliciting no one to kill no one. So it's definitely a precedent case that they bent the rules on.
During court appearances, the prosecutor refused to take into account the facts that proved Schaeffer's innocence. The federal judge, who was summoned specifically for this case after his retirement, refused to take into account the records confirming his innocence. Why do you think the government was so scared that it took such measures and turned the court into a kangaroo court?
Well, Schaeffer had he's a real dynamic speaker, and a lot of people listen to him, and he has a really good grasp on freedom. He was homeschooled, so he wasn't brainwashed in 12 years of public education, and his ideas of freedom and following the Constitution were very important, and those are the kind of things that the government sees as threats.
The judicial proceedings in a high-profile case of Schaeffer were moved from Alaska to Washington, despite the fact that the crimes accused of him took place on the territory of Alaska. In your opinion, did the prosecutors deliberately took this step, taking into account the popularity of Cox in Alaska at that moment?
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if you know, but his case was a state case, the state of Alaska.
Right.
And the state threw the case out because they heard the evidence and they decided there is no case. So
and federal government picked it up.
Right. They picked it up, and it's completely out of their jurisdiction. They had no reason and no political authority to do it, but they just did.
Schaeffer was sentenced to 26 years in prison and is currently serving his sentence in the Communications Management Unit, CMU, in Indiana, a prison originally created for especially dangerous terrorists and recognized as one of the 10 worst prisons in the world. The American Civil Liberties Union has repeatedly expressed concern about possible racial discrimination against white prisoners, especially Christians, since most of the prisoners are Arab Muslims. Tell me, did the Schaeffer encounter harassment and bullying inside the penitentiary institution, and how did the prison guards react to this?
Yeah, the CMU, it's basically a torture unit. They have different tortures. One thing is they were starving them to death. They feed them super small calories. So he actually had the disease of scurvy, which is a vitamin C deficiency, and a lot of the men have beriberi, which is a vitamin K deficiency. They expose them to extreme sleep deprivation, where they'll wake them up 30 minutes. They've been exposed to extreme temperature deviations, where they'll make it really cold or really, really hot. I know that they are not supposed to 4-point shackle them to a bed for longer than 24 hours, but I know that that's not always true, that they'll 4-point shackle them for, weeks at a time. So definitely the Muslims in this unit hate, the white guys. And I don't know if you'll get to this, but in November of 2018, I think, there was a prisoner that was beheaded there in this unit. And when the prisoner had a wire to try to take this guy's head off, the guards went and locked themselves in a room. And so the prisoners are just there to fight for themselves. And, there's 4 or 5, Christian men that are fighting the, 30 Muslims. So it's a very, very bad place.
It really sounds like a clear torture.
Mm-hmm. It is definitely.
One of Schaeffer's few friends in prisons was brutally executed by a racial Islamist prisoner. The prison guards, in turn, took absolutely no actions to stop him. That's exactly what we've been discussing now. How is this possible in a high-security prison with a budget of several $1 million annually? And wasn't this murder organized by the American Special Services in order to break the Schaeffer's moral?
Well, that's a good question on how it was allowed in this high security prison. But I do know that the prisoner that was murdered had a court case against the warden and the prison. So it's just kind of interesting that he was the one that was killed. They are always trying to break these guys down. They limit their phone calls to 2 15-minute calls a week. They're monitored live. And if they say anything they don't want them to say, they'll hang up the phone. It's monitored by the counterterrorism unit in Virginia. So,
Wow. In August 2017, the Court of Appeal ruled that there was no evidence confirming Schaeffer's involvement in incitement to murder and reduced his prison sentence by 10 years. What do you think are the chances that the court will take into account other evidence of his innocence and release an innocent convicted person?
Well, the last appeal, so you're referring to the appeal that dropped his charge of solicitation. And if you don't solicit anyone, then there's nobody to conspire with. Right. But the charge of conspiracy. This last appeal, the judges on the Ninth Circuit said that if they drop his charge, then that's going to open up a lot more cases to come to them. And they're basically saying, we can't be bothered with all these cases. So they denied his last appeal to drop conspiracy.
As we know, for some time, Schaeffer Cox served a prison sentence together with the Russian man Victor Bout, who was also convicted on trumped-up charges. How did their relationship develop? Did Victor's experience help to maintain peaceful relations with the prisoners from Muslim countries due to the fact that for a long time he was working and living in the Eastern countries?
I know that they have been really good friends, and one of the ways the prison tries to break these men is separate friends. So they've been separated for a while, but I know that they were very supportive to each other. Yeah.
So did Victor Bout help him to maintain or establish relationship with the Muslim people, since he had such an experience working and communicating with people from Arab countries? You think Victor's experience helped?
Yes.
In a recent interview with the Foundation to Battle Injustice, conservative activist Rudy Davis, who is also supporting Cox, complained that censorship in the United States goes beyond what's permitted. The American government suppresses the freedom of speech of everyone who somehow expresses an irritation with the current establishment. Tell me, please, have you faced censorship in your struggle for truth and justice? And if so, how did it affect the campaign to protect Schaeffer?
Well, they're definitely censoring us. Like when I was sitting right next to Victor Boot's daughter, she has, her computer and I had mine, and she brought up an article on her computer, and I tried to bring up the exact same article and it would not come up on my computer. So it was just an example of how we only can see what they want us to see. And
Right.
many voices of truth have been completely deleted from Facebook and social media. So it hasn't been a big problem for me personally. I'm not real outspoken on social media. So.
It's no secret that Schaeffer is a Christian, a man of religious views. The American and European leftists have seriously set out to destroy Christianity. It seems that they receive support from influential political groups. In the United States, Canada, Europe, arson of churches has become more frequent. Christians are attacked by atheist fanatics. I think that this is truly terrible. How do you think we can stop this process?
Well, I don't know how we can stop it, but saw that the prosecutor at the federal trial in his closing arguments, he actually said in court that Mr. Cox believes God's law is above man's law and is therefore beyond rehabilitation and deserves a longer prison sentence. He actually said that in court. So I think the best thing is to just keep speaking and keep being ourselves, and whatever happens, happens.
I agree with you. We should keep speaking. Everyone sees how conservatives are unfairly treated in the United States. There is no doubt that the political repression and the propaganda machine is targeted against conservatives. For what reason has there not yet been created nationwide movement to protect the rights of conservative-minded citizens, by analogy with the organization Black Lives Matter, which protects the rights of African Americans?
Well, I think that the media is so owned by the people with money, and they only report what they're paid to report. So I think that there's not enough people probably standing up and not complying, because it takes a lot of people to not comply, and it takes a lot of people to really care about what's going on. I've told hundreds of people about the CMU, and no one really knows what to do or how to stop it. A lot, the prisoners are one of the most hated groups in America. So it's really sad.
It is. At the moment, there are about 2.5 million prisoners in American prison. America occupies a leading position in the number of prisoners per 100,000 inhabitants. About 25% of all prisoners on the planet are behind bars in American prisons, although the United States population is only about 5% of the world's population. Why do you think there are so many prisoners in the United States? And does the United States penitentiary system need urgent reform? Why don't any world media cover up the issues related to the U.S. penal system?
Well, I think that there's so many prisoners because there's so much corruption, and they want to fill their prison bed because some prisons get $65,000 a year per prisoner. So it's definitely a slave labor. And in 1984, the prison population of America was 285,000. So I think that, the CIA, they created the war on drugs, and they used that as an opportunity to build prison and fill their prison beds. And now, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And it is so sad, so sad. People lose their whole lives for it.
According to our estimates, there are about 1,000 so-called human rights organizations in the United States. Tell us about how they work. Do organizations that call themselves human rights defending really help people who faced police, judicial, or any other brutality?
Well, the only one I've seen actually do anything regarding the CMU is the Center for Constitutional Rights. They've have some lawsuits, and they've written some articles about it. But other than that, seems like there's just not enough people to really care. In America, we're so brainwashed to think that if someone's in prison, they're guilty and they deserve whatever they get. And, 3/4 of the prisoners are not guilty of any crime. So we have, 3/4 of prisoners that shouldn't even be in prison. But there just seems to be like there's just not enough people who care. And they really believe, in America, they really believe everything they hear from the media. I think it's changing, but super slow, really slow. Mm-hmm.
The Foundation to Battle Injustice regularly requesting the clarifications from American officials trying to draw attention to cases of state terror, including the case of Schaeffer Cox. We can say with the confidence that American officials respond by unsubscribing without initiating any actions aimed at reviewing cases of obvious human rights violations. Does the American government really not care about its citizens? Is this a sign of the complete lack of interest of responsible officials and a problem of systematic infringement of rights and freedoms?
Yeah, I think that the system overall does not care about their prisoners. They're getting money for the prisoners, and they seem to not care at all about, the innocent people in prison.
This is so sad.
It's very, very, very sad. And there's a strong line of more like communism, through the government. It's no longer a constitutional republic. It's they operate like communism, and people are so afraid to stand up to authorities. They're so afraid of the cops and the politicians, and because they've destroyed so many lives. And I think people overall are really scared, really scared.
Do you agree with the statement that the American criminal justice system is set against people, exists only to make money? Is it possible that the American Themis has closed its eyes only so as not to see all the horror and arbitrariness that does prosecutors and judges in courtrooms?
I do agree with that statement. Yes, I think it's absolutely about money. And I think it's absolutely, they have no care as the people, as humans. They're bureaucracies, they're rule followers, and they do not see people as human beings.
The Declaration of Independence of the United States and the basic laws of many other countries guarantee the right of people to armed rebellion against tyrannical and unjust power. How literally should this right be taken, and where is the limit that the government must cross so that the people can use this right? Has such a moment come yet in the United States?
I think that moment is way past. I think gone, people have submitted to whatever they hear on TV. They believe it. And I think the line is definitely crossed a long, long time ago. And you see a few people here and there standing up, and a few pockets of people that has more freedom, but overall it's people that follow rules and comply with whatever the perceived authority says.
Thank you for the answers, Angela. I wish you good luck in all your hard work and your fight, and wish Schaeffer Cox to be released as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much for caring and reporting. Thank you.